happen to miss it, you will get a link to the recording session. Before we crack on with this evening's presentation, I just wanted to take a little bit of time to introduce your two hosts, which are both Katie and myself. So, Katie.
Hey guys, I'm Katie. Is there an echo in the background? We good?
We are good, Katie.
Huzzah! Oh my God, I'm so excited to be here with you guys and talking about this summit. As Sarah was saying, this has been one of those long in the makings expeditions. One of our first philosophies at Equestrian movement is before you start trying to fix any behaviour or training or anything, make sure your horse doesn't have any legitimate worries that it's trying to communicate. And while I have a bit of experience in those worries, they are certainly not my area of expertise. So excited to have our presenters on board for this weekend who are going to be able to discuss all sorts of concerns that your horse might have, like dental issues and bit fitting issues, posture, hooves, aromatherapy, muscle pain, and we're going to talk a little bit about making sure that you're not putting yourself out when you're helping others out with agistment and whatnot, so that you can cover your horse's needs. So for those of you that don't know me, I am the instructor and trainer at Equestrian Movement, and I've been oh my God, I don't even know how long I've been riding for over 20 years and teaching for 13, I think. So, you know, this has obviously been a big passion of mine for a really long time, and worked with hundreds of people and riders to try and find the harmony that comes when, you know, everything is running swimmingly with our horses, which can be rare. My horse currently has a puncture wound in his knee that has required daily penicillin antibiotics and wrapping and treatment and whatnot. So yeah, we just are really excited to be covering these extra adventures and mishaps, I guess, that we have with our horses. I know a few of the ladies that have come through training trainability and going to self-carriage have come there because they started with underlying issues like ulcers and saddle fit problems and musculoskeletal issues and that kind of thing. So you know, really trying to repair that relationship breakdown that can happen if we miss these little cues and you know, horses don't have words to describe their complaints to us in, so we have to read those cues that they give us, and sometimes those cues can make us think that they're being naughty.
Absolutely. And I was really lucky enough to meet Katie when a friend of mine decided that she needed extra support with riding and got Katie out. And I was like, yeah, me too, me too, me too. And I reckon it was probably kismet, wasn't it, Katie? So I've spent quite some time. It's coming up to about 5 years now with working with Katie. My history in my own self is that I'm actually a veterinary nurse, working in the veterinary industry, and had a lifelong passion with horses. But as a young girl, I was never one of those kids that was lucky enough to have her own horse. So I spent most of my time begging and borrowing and using everybody else's horses. And I never actually outgrew the passion for horses. So I was lucky enough, the friend that I mentioned that brought Katie across, she and I were talking one day in a veterinary clinic, and it came up that she had horses, and I said, oh, you like horses? You have horses? And she said, yes. You like horses? And I said, oh, yes, I like horses. And so it became a lifelong friendship where she's allowed me to lease her horses. So I get the joys of ownership now, which I've been missing my entire life. So I have this absolute deep abiding passion, and since working with Katie, I've started to see these correlations between what I want, which is a relationship with an animal, as opposed to a domination of an animal, and how we can work with our horses in particular in a way that is actually going to foster that relationship and that bond as well. So it was actually on the second horse that I was leasing, after I started working with my boy Custard, Katie, I started thinking, this is the second horse that Katie's worked with me with, and we've seen massive changes. This is ridiculous. We need to get Katie's word out there. So, and that was the start of Equestrian Movement. So together we have founded Equestrian Movement, and also the Stronger Bond community, which some of you guys are watching from, which I can see you guys popping messages through. So if you see me popping, looking to my left, it's because I'm looking at Facebook on my own, just to keep an eye on messages as they're coming through as well. So thank you guys so much. It's an area that we really love. We want to support horse owners and other horse lovers with the unique challenges that you do actually face with your horse. Every horse has their own personality, and every horse has their own unique identity, and every person is their own personality and unique identity that we need to meld together to create that relationship. So that's a little bit about Equestrian Movement and a little bit of an insight into what we're going to be presenting later tonight. But I did want to talk to you guys about our first do no harm topic. For us, it's very, very important. Horses to us are not tools, and I'm sure you're here for the exact same reason. Your horse is not your tool. Each horse has their unique personality, as I said, their own history. And when we tailor the way we work with our horse to match that personality and that history, we can actually develop this process that takes our horses from being a submissive, I guess, beast or a submissive animal to an actual willing partner. And that's really what I want when it comes to my riding and interaction with horses. It's that willingness. As I mentioned before, the summer, it came to Katie as an idea about 12 months ago. And we thought that given the current situation that we're all facing globally, there wasn't really much of a better time than to sort of sit down and reach out to everybody, because let's face it, when we're seeing less competition, some of us are riding less because we're in much stricter enforcements. It's a great time just to sit down, and even if you don't have the time to catch us live, you'll be able to sit down and binge watch up to about 11-ish hours worth of summit presentation in the recording, which is pretty cool. So give you a little bit about what's going to happen. So tonight we're going to lead, Katie and I are going to lead with our first presentation, which are the 3 secrets to forge a stronger, deeper bond or relationship with your horse. Then tomorrow and Saturday and Sunday, we're actually going to have about 5 sessions each day. You're going to see a range of new faces. So those of you guys who have been following us in the Stronger Bond community, these faces won't be, will probably be relatively new to you guys. Do welcome them. They have committed their time for free to give you information and share some of their insights. And it's really amazing for them to do that. So it's really, I would really want you to make them feel welcome. On Saturday, we've got Lisa Marie, Anna, Lisa, Jane presenting, and as well as Katie's coming back on in the evening to present yet again. And on Sunday, we have Lindsay, Elise, Zane, Christine, and I will be presenting as well. So you've got a few different faces that you'll be hearing about, and different topics that we'll be going through with our own different experiences and professions. If you haven't seen the details with regards to time that was in your email that was sent across earlier, it's also in the Facebook group if you are in the Facebook group. If you're having troubles finding that information, let us know, and I'll tag you in them as well. So just while we're waiting for a few more people to join on, a shout out to all of you guys who have taken the time to participate with us. Why don't you give us a little bit of an idea of where you guys are coming from? Pop it in the chat section if you're on the webinar. If you're on the Facebook group, pop it in the comments. Let us know whereabouts you're coming from, what time it is, whether it's chilly. It started to get a little bit chillier in southeast Queensland. As you can see, I'm wearing my poncho because I'm a sub, it gets under 20 degrees. But yeah, tell us where you guys are coming in from. What's the temperature like over at your place, Katie?
Oh yeah, it's quite cool. I have a jumper on.
Okay, we've got Andrea telling us that she's coming in from the UK. It must be pretty late in the afternoon pretty early in the morning in the UK, if I'm quite right. Mid-morning. Sam's coming from Southeast Victoria. Beautiful. Alrighty. Well, while everybody else is chatting and typing in their comments, because I am that quick. Oh, Len's coming from Ballarat. Maddie and Kylie are from Brizzy. Hey, Kylie, how are you? Pam's coming from Canada. We've got Perth. Andrea said in the UK it's cloudy and rainy and approximately 8 degrees, which I shouldn't be complaining about it getting down to 8 degrees Celsius in Brisbane, 18 degrees in Brisbane. Glasgow in the UK. We've got people coming around from all across the world. It's absolutely amazing. Hi, Diane. Long time no see. Haven't seen you for ages up in Baffle Creek in my old growing up from school place. Alrighty, just a couple little housekeeping tips for you guys. Feel free 100% to post any comments you have during these presentations. If I can, I will interject into the presentation and ask those questions on your behalf. If we've slightly moved on, we will collate those questions for the end of the session. So feel free to pop them on, but at the end of every session, we will have an Q&A session. So don't feel like your question will get missed just because it has been missed. Or we have moved on. We will come back and address it at the end of the time period. We're expecting that each session shouldn't go over about an hour, give or take. Now, we do have Katie on tonight, and she's well known in our community for going on a tangent, starting off on a 20-minute presentation and heading off for another 40 minutes on the sidetrack. So we'll see how much I can rein her in. But yes, approximately about an hour. But don't feel if you, for any reason, have to drop out during that particular time period that you have to, that you're going to miss out on anything, because you'll get those links to those recordings after the session. The recordings will stay live in the group, so you can catch the replay in there, in the Facebook group. Otherwise, if you are on our email system, you will get them emailed through to you tomorrow as well. Sorry, I was just looking at my notes and I've gotten to that particular point. So again, I really want to thank you guys for your participation. I really appreciate that you've put some time and effort into coming into our sessions. I know that for some of you, it's still technically at work day. I know for some of you, it's later at night. Like for example, someone's in New Zealand, so it's over coming up to 9:45 over that way. But make sure that you do pop any comments or questions on there. Feel free to interact. We're a very welcoming environment. Nobody should feel like they're uncomfortable enough to ask any questions. But if you do, be sure to reach out to us by email or through a personal message if you want to contact us directly, and we can put you in contact with the correct people. So without further ado, I'm actually going to kick off, or Katie's going to kick off with our very first presentation, which is the 3 secrets to forging a stronger bond and a deeper relationship with your horse. Over to you, Katie.
Hey guys, so tonight's topic about the 3 secrets to forge a stronger bond and a deeper relationship with your horse really did start with the horse in this photo here, King. He was a special little nugget. Got sold to us as a competition horse, and a year later, after all the trials and tribulations that come down to owning a horse, we found out he was off the rodeo circuit. So we had all sorts of issues. We couldn't tie him up. I couldn't get a bridle on him, couldn't get him on the float, and he'd buck me off every time I rode him. So he really is my heart horse that started this passion project for me all the way back in high school. So let's get started. Who are we? We just had a little rundown of that, but I'm Katie and I'm the head coach at Equestrian Movement. And so for years I have ridden competitively and been to states and whatnot. And as I was growing up, we did lots of the old school way. At one point I was riding King in a double bridle, spurs and a whip in each hand, wondering why he was bucking. And I got to a point with my riding and my training as I delved more into the professional rider, trainer, instructor aspect of, I just didn't like the person that I had to be the professional trainer I was trying to become. And so I decided that there had to be a better way. And my coach at the time told me that I was unteachable. And so she fired me as her student, and I decided to go down the rabbit hole on my own. And this is showing my age, but it was before internet was so big for these training tools and whatnot, and before it was really easy to learn and share these methods. So it was a lot of experimentation, I guess, with different horses, of just trying to find the best way to work with them and communicate with them, and trying to find those positive tools that you can interact with your horse in a way that makes it, the whole process, beneficial for them. So not just physically, but that mental and emotional load that we put on them in a training environment is, how can we make that a positive experience that grows them, instead of a negative experience that traumatizes them. Really, some of them, we know, we've met them. So lots of different philosophies that I like to incorporate, not just with horses, but I, like to read training with other animals, kids. I've just had my own, so learning lots of new things with Finn, and personal development has always been a big journey for me. So different meditation styles and emotional conditioning and whatnot. So I've since helped countless dangerous horses to find the root cause of their behavior. Usually it's a lack of being able to communicate their needs. Most often when I go out and meet a horse owner combination, it really has gotten to that point where the owner is too scared of their horse to do anything with it, but all the horse is trying to do is communicate something, which is really where we're coming from with first do no harm. It can be because they've got ulcers or a poorly fitted saddle, or numerous reasons, or it can just be because they're looking for that communication and that stability and support in the first place as well. If we see lots of different horses that get moved through lots of different hands, we get them and they've had 6, 7 different families and herds and whatnot. That in itself can be a trauma for some of the horses as well. So here at Equestrian Movement, we are on a mission to revolutionize the horse industry and just really hold ourselves and others accountable for the way we handle and treat horses, and just to try and create a relationship where horses can be considered our equals in training. We want the training to happen for our horses, not to them. So there has to be a better way. So one of the things that happens as a professional rider and trainer is that we are responsible for cueing a horse and training the tricks in a very short period of time. So what we don't have time to do is create the emotional support that our horse needs to cope with that pressure and that intensity of work. So this is a scenario where if you are with your horse and you're having issues with your horse and you don't know what's wrong and how you're possibly going to fix it, and you're thinking, oh, I just need to be a better rider. Well, truly, you are the best person for your horse, because you are the one that can create that secure attachment and build the confidence and the trust, and really bring out that sweet little thing that's inside that you are dreaming of connecting with, and really allow that to flourish. When you send your horse to the trainers, they are disciplining the issues that you have, and pushing them through them and potentially sorting them out. But at the end of the day, a lot of the reasons for the behaviors to be there in the first place are our horse's own insecurities, whether they be aggressive or spooky and having a lot of stress and anxiety. That root cause is that security and that secure attachment to something and somebody that is going to help make them feel safe. So the purpose of strengthening your bond with your horse is to provide that emotional support, encourage trust and confidence. We're trying to build a learning brain. So if we are working our horses from a place of fear and intimidating them into working with us, then they're not in a learning brain, they're in a reactive brain. And we're teaching them to be more reactive. Whereas if we get them into a learning brain and we get them thinking about our cues and engaging in the training, then we're activating a different area of their brain that allows them to learn and process these cues. But to do that, we have to support them emotionally to process those stresses in the first place that flip them into that fear brain. And we want to encourage our horses to work with you, not to have to work with you. So you are the best person to do this. Your trainer and instructors and coaches and whatnot, they can all support you. And we definitely recommend that they help you if you feel unsafe and are scared of your horse. But at the end of the day, they can't build the relationship with the horse that you can. And this is one of the big reasons why I've stopped training, is that I find it really hard to just cue train and trick train now without that emotional aspect and that relationship. So and I always find it really hard if my students need to sell their horse or upgrade or whatnot. So it's one of those scenarios where I get really emotionally involved with these horse and human partnerships. And so, you know, you can be the person that allows your horse to flourish by providing them with the emotional support that they need. So why do we see behavioural issues and why do they escalate? So obviously this whole summit is about first doing no harm. So we can see behavioural issues escalate, as we were talking earlier. You know, issues that need to be addressed by vets, like ulcers and intestinal upsets, musculoskeletal issues, poorly fitted tack, farrier issues, dental issues, bit issues. Ourselves, we can create problems in the saddle if we're not balanced and not helping our horse. And we can also do damage, which we will talk about in tomorrow night's presentation. We can also do damage when we're training them as well. So you do need to understand a little bit about musculoskeletal conditioning to make sure that we're actually not doing harm when we're riding as well. So if we rule out all of the things that can be contributing to our horse's behavioural issues, then we're left with attitude. And the attitude can have several underlying causes in itself that we go through quite deeply in training trainability, but just as broad strokes to cover off a lot of the things that I see as a trainer, is being able to show up for your horse as a good leader by showing consistency, confidence, and developing consent. A horse that can't control its emotions can't control its behavior. So when we see our horse act out and have these, you know, these behavioral issues, it's coming from an emotion that they're not able to control anymore. And when we really strip that back, and when we show up as a good leader by being consistent and developing our horse's confidence in us, and then we also add to that the tool of consent, where the horse is able to say yes or no, then we can address those emotions before they escalate into a behavioural issue. Today, I think one of our students in trainability said that she had been practicing her consent cue and realised that her horse was nipping at her. She thought she was being naughty, but she wasn't actually being naughty. She was just feeling a bit intimidated and trapped in the stable when she was doing it. So purely by addressing that consent, her horse is able to tell her to just approach her a little slower, take her time with her, and she will develop her confidence in being caught then without nipping in the first place. So consistency. What we do. So to show up with consistency, we need to set boundaries, be consistent, follow through on our ask, and show our horse there is a clear cause and effect. So this is every time you handle your horse. It's not just, oh, I'm training today, so I'm going to follow through on my ask and be consistent with it. This is, when you've got 5 minutes to feed because you're on your way to work, you still have to be clear and consistent with your expectations of your horse. When you go and catch them, it's, really easy to get into that mindset, right, I've got an hour to ride. I need to go catch my horse, tuck it up, ride. But if you're seeing problems in the paddock going and catching them, then it's definitely going to lead to problems in the saddle. Same through to tacking up and grooming and whatnot, is we really need to be addressing anything that's coming up there before it escalates on the saddle. And so we do a lot of consent work on the tack and the mounting process itself, and the interactions we have when we go to catch our horse, so that when we get to the ridden part, there actually isn't any behavioural problems left to address. And if they are, it's because there's physical problems that we need to look at. What we don't do, what we try really hard not to do, is bully our horse into submission, not be clear on what we're asking, give up because it's too hard, not let our horse know what we expect of them, and be inconsistent with our expectations and routine. So, there is a little room for error, but if we really want to show up for our horse as a good leader, we have to be really clear in our expectations, but we have to be really consistent in how we expect that of them as well. And when we talk about bullying a horse into submission, what I'm really talking about is when your horse doesn't understand why they're in trouble. And this is when we get most of the behavioural problems come up as a result of training, is because if they've not done the right thing, they've just had a heavy hand at them. But that doesn't mean that they understand what's being asked of them. It doesn't mean that they can do what's being asked of them. It doesn't mean that there isn't something underlying that they're trying to communicate. There's plenty of reasons for our horse to say no, which is why it's so important to address those before we ask our horse to do something. And then we also have tools at Equestrian Movement that we choose to use over bullying, as like discipline and setting boundaries. So one of our favorite exercises is just walk when I walk, halt when I halt, and back when I back. And we use this to set boundaries. And it's basically hey, pay attention to me, we're working together. And that honestly, alongside consent, has meant that there isn't really any bullying needed once we start developing a relationship with our horse. So building confidence. What we do, we teach our horse to be curious of things they're scared of, help them process their emotions and fear, be there for them to support them in investigating what they're scared of, creating a positive experience from a scary situation. So obviously, our horses are flight animals, and one of the biggest problems that we face a lot with them is them spooking and startling and just running away. So what we do at Equestrian Movement is we don't focus so much on desensitizing. We do it a little bit, but in desensitizing, you're just teaching your horse not to react. And so rather than teaching them not to react and shut down, and then they explode because they can't manage that emotion anymore, and you go, what? Where did that come from? They were being so perfect. Anybody heard of a bomb-proof horse explode? What we do try to do is teach them to be curious of the things that they're scared of, and investigate them. So we do lots of targeting, and we also show them how to process fear if they are scared. We be there for them and with them, and we try not to get scared of them at the same time. When we've got our big kite on a string, 17-hand thoroughbred deciding that the plastic bag on the fence is terrifying, we try not to be terrified of them as well. So we do lots of breathing exercises and reinforcing relaxation cues with our horse, so that when we do go into these more challenging environments where they are likely to find things that they're scared of, they know what to expect from us to support them, and we know what to do to help them as well. And that's a big thing for our horses, is they are big scaredy cats, and when we can show them that we're there for them and we will help them with what they're scared of, we're at the same time building that trust and confidence in us as well. That strengthens the relationship. Quite often we talk about how, helping our horses through these scary experiences is one of the big drivers in deepening that relationship with us. Not that we want you to put them in scary positions on purpose, but we do know that as we challenge them in new environments, we have to show them how to investigate the things that they're scared of. What we don't do, we don't bully them past what they're scared of. We don't do too much desensitizing. We do it a little bit to whips. That's about it. We don't be bigger, badder, or scarier than what they're scared of. And we don't try to get them to ignore what they're scared of and distract them from what they're looking at. So the reason why I listed all of these is because I've experienced them firsthand. This is everything, that we get taught to traditionally of how to deal with our horses when they're scared. Just be bigger, badder, and scarier than what they're scared of, and they will stop being scared. They'll be scared of you instead. So that's what we're trying to avoid when we're building confidence and trust in us. Obviously it is a technique that does work for some people, but it's not going to build that bond and that relationship deeper than just doing as they're told because we told them to. We're trying to actually develop a connection and a rapport and a relationship with our horses. I want my horse to protect me, and if I fall off the stop and check, I'm okay, not to be the reason that I fell off.
Julie, Katie, just before you go ahead into consent, I just had Julia on the Facebook group asking for any tips and advice. So she needs to learn how to give her thoroughbred confidence ever since he was evacuated due to the fires, which was in a nice calm situation and to an area with lots of other horses, but he's become very nervous as soon as he leaves his paddock. Any tips there?
Yeah, we do see that a fair bit. It is a bit of a journey, that one. We can see it happen with horses if they leave an environment that they're attached to and they don't think that they're going back. So we can see that a lot with horses that do get moved from home to home. It takes them a while to settle in and whatnot. I would focus on the connection being with you, not his environment. So it was his environment that he probably felt safe in, and then you've moved the environment, and so he's lost that feeling of safety. So you've got to give him something to anchor to make him feel secure, which we're trying to make us. And so the second thing, if he has actually gone back to that environment, there's a bit of a fear of, you know, moving and not coming back. So being able to take them away and bring them back and know that they're going to return home, or they know that they're going to come back to you, is how we move forward. But it is, you do have to rebuild that trust with him. Is that good, Sarah?
I think that sounds great. Thanks, Kate.
All right, so consent. What we do is we give our horses a tool to say that they are ready for the next ask. We use our emotional motivators to positively reinforce their willingness, and we set achievable goals, but we get comfortable in moving our goalposts. So this is a big one to unpack, because again, it's a lot of those things that we do get told are the wrong things to do in the horse industry. So let's start with letting our horses say no. So when we're letting our horses say no, there's a difference between them outright challenging us for the leadership and them saying no because they're not emotionally, mentally, or physically processing what we ask of them. And we do go into this a lot deeper in training trainability and how to figure out which one they're doing. But it is, while it's important to be able to follow through on your ask, it's also important for your horse to have a voice. And so if, you know, you've overdone it on your training session, or you've overwhelmed them, or they have the physical issues that we're going to be talking about in First Do No Harm, they need to be able to tell us. And if we don't give them the tool to tell us, then they tell us with their behavior. And so that's where the behavioral issues will stem from. We use emotional motivators to positively reinforce our horse and encourage willingness. So we talk a little bit about treat training, and we do use some treat training and vocals to mark behavior and whatnot, like they do in clicker training. But we're also talking about just giving your horse a pat, giving them like a, oh, good horse, good boy, good girl, giving them those emotional motivators to we've really condensed Stronger Bond here. This is like a whole day. We talk about finding our horse's love language. So does your horse like pats and scratches? Does it like treats? Does it just like being with you? Does it like to be groomed? So we talk about these things that our horse enjoys, that is like bonding time, where they're enjoying our company and being with us, and we call them emotional motivators. And so this stimulates happy hormones. Another kind of form of an emotional motivator is finishing your training session on a positive note, taking the pressure off your horse for a good response, finishing up an exercise because you felt that they put effort in, even though it wasn't to the quality that you had hoped. And so this is then where we also talk about setting achievable goals and getting comfortable with moving our goalposts. So, you know, a lot of times we'll go to ride and have these big expectations of what we want to achieve for the day, and we get there and our horse runs to the other end of the paddock and we're like, well, today's not going to be a good day. So our horse doesn't know what our goalposts were for the day, so they don't know that they're getting away with it if we adjust the goalposts. If all we do is go out and teach our horse that we are going to catch them, groom them, and let them go back to eating, then they don't know that they have gotten out of work because they can't read our mind. But we have adjusted the goalpost to suit our horse's mentality on that day, and even just, you know, not adjusting it so big like that, But like even just riding, if you feel that they mentally or physically fatigued before you get what you were looking for, then pushing to that point isn't going to help you or your horse. So being able to finish feeling like you could have done more and on a positive note is far better than meeting your expectations of your training session. What we don't do is put more pressure on them than they can cope with. So it's another big one to unpack. These are big topics that we normally spend a whole day on. So when our horse isn't coping physically, when they're not coping emotionally, when they're not coping mentally, it's where all of our behavioural issues come from. And if they don't have a way of telling us that they're not coping, and we have high expectations of what they should be doing for us so that we can reach our goals, then we can put more and more pressure on them, and we end up with them not using themselves correctly because they're tight and they're sore from overwork. They're not mentally engaged in learning, so and participating, so they're not using their body in a way that supports them because they don't want to be there. And we end up making like a pressure cooker situation where you know, in their head they're kind of going no, 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 and then it all explodes. But if we can get yes and then yes, and we build on the yes and we get more and more yeses, then we have a horse that's willingly participating in its learning and in its development. And so then we can finish before they get overwhelmed and they're not coping. This includes when you want to take your horse out into a new environment as well, is that in itself can be a pressure. And so if we go into a new environment and we expect them to work perfectly like they do at home, and sometimes we go to competitions and we cross our fingers that they work better than they do at home, we're going to have the same problems of that like pressure cooker situation. Signs that your horse is trying to communicate. Nipping and biting, kicking and striking, ears are pinned, tight tail swishes, or their tail is locked down. That's a bit more subtle. Running at you in the paddock and chasing you, that's a loud one. Anxiety and spooking, running into you, over the top of you, and barging you. So basically any behaviours that they are exhibiting that are telling you to ping off, or they don't want to be there, they're not engaged, they're not willing, are signs that your horse is trying to tell you that they want you to find the better way. Okay, I'm just going to see if I can do this because my pictures were covering my words. So being the leader that your horse needs. Whatever word you choose that resonates with you most, whether it be leader, partner, mentor, you need to be somebody that your horse can trust to lead. And that's why we talk a lot about leadership. When you have a friend that gets you into many bad situations, you start trying to distance yourself from them and their choices. If you can't show your horse you will make good choices for them, they won't follow. So I think we've all been in that scenario where we've had friends lead us astray. And you kind of get to a point where you start distancing yourself and you don't want to keep following them. So we want to be the person that isn't leading our horse into the situations that are scary until they have the tools to cope with them. So to do this, we need to set clear boundaries, follow through on our asks, be consistent. As much as we can, it's good to have a routine and to be able to set your expectations. And again, as much as we can, try not to micromanage their behavior. So what I mean is just like little things that we can kind of let slide to a certain degree. If we're picking on them for every little thing, then they can end up getting frustrated with us as well. So one of the tools that we use at Equestrian Movement is targeting to build curiosity. So this is where we talked a little bit about using curiosity versus desensitization. So when you desensitize, you have to show the horse not to react to a certain thing. And you generally end up having to go through that process with each new thing that you introduce to them. So we will find it hard to be able to introduce them and tell them not to react to every single thing that they're going to be scared of. And it will be the day that you go out on a trail ride and there's balloons tied to the fence that they've never seen before, that they start to spook to. Whereas with curiosity, we can teach them to target and investigate the things that they're scared of. So if you have those same balloons on the fence, they know what to do with them. They will go and touch it with their nose and investigate it, and learn that it's okay to investigate things that they're scared of. And because we've set that premise with the horses, that we've shown them that they can investigate things that they're scared of, they will look to us to help them with that as well. So when we say, come on, like, it's not that scary, just go touch it with your nose and see, they will also trust us, because we will have done that with them for other objects that they were scared of, and hopefully we've created a positive environment for them to do that in, so that actually ended up being a good experience for them. So when you're desensitizing, you're teaching your horse not to show that they are scared of something through their behavior. So you can't see the tension mounting until they explode. So this is the main reason why we don't use a lot of desensitization, is because we don't want our horses to be shut down. I actually want to see any of their tension in them, so that we can actually deal with it, rather than them kind of like just hiding it and pushing it down. And then we get to a situation where they can't control their fear anymore and it explodes. So my background is as a horse riding instructor with young kids and beginners. And so it's really important that I know where my horse's head is at when I'm working with kids and whatnot, because sometimes they don't cope with the kids, running around, being silly, jumping around and whatnot. And you need to know that before you're introducing them into that environment. With curiosity, you allow them to show you they are scared, and you show them how to investigate. So this is also validating your leadership skills, and helping you show up as a leader in a different way to what we were talking about with setting boundaries. We are also giving our horse coping skills. We're teaching them skills to move themselves out of a state of fear and reactivity and into a state of learning and processing. So this self-regulation process is really important for them to learn. Some horses have it naturally, where they aren't super scared of things, and other horses are just really scared of everything. And so, whether they're not naturally inclined to being spooky, or if they're off the chart spooky, if we give them the skills to investigate and be curious and be confident with things that they're scared of, then we're kind of stretching what they're capable of, and we don't have to do it in a way that we're bullying them through it and being more scary than what they're scared of. So stressing our horses. Stress happens. Everything that we do with our horse is creating a stress. We're physically stressing our horse when we're riding them. We're emotionally stressing our horse when we interact with them. And we're mentally stressing our horse when we are training them and asking things of them. So it's important that our horse can tell us if that stress is too much. So that's why we use consent. So consent allows our horse to ask for some space to process their emotions and be in a huff. It's unreasonable to expect that our horse goes, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, of everything that we ask of them. It's unreasonable to expect that of anybody, let alone our horses that are trying to communicate with us in a different language, and don't necessarily know what we want of them or can do what we want of them. So consent allows them to ask for some space to process if they're getting frustrated, if they're getting angry. And this can take a lot of our aggressive characteristics out of our horses just with this one little exercise that we do with our horses. Consent also gives the horse some control over what happens to them and can help them feel more comfortable with working with you. Once your horse knows that if they say no, you stop, the power that it gives them is just incredible, that they can feel comfortable with setting their own boundaries to make sure that we're not overworking them. And then it means that we can develop willingness and enthusiasm to be with us in that learning process, purely because you know, when they're comfortable with telling us to stop putting pressure on them, we actually can put more pressure on them because they're like, yes, I'm ready, I can do this with you, rather than us always putting pressure on them when whether they're ready for it or not, and them feeling overwhelmed by that amount of pressure and just reacting. Consent also works to reconnect with them if your demands and asks are starting to rub them the wrong way and create frustration. So, yeah, this comes up a bit when we're setting our boundaries and being a little bit more disciplining in our work. It can really rub some of our horses the wrong way. And so it's my little way of saying, hey, we're friends, you know, don't lash out at me. We've all been in that situation with the horse that, you know, stomps or flicks its tail at you and you know where it's going. It's going to be a kick or a bite or a strike or something. And so it's just a, hey, like, bring your energy levels down. We can move on when you're ready. Consent and connection are what create willingness that isn't a result of force. This is a big thing that we've actually been talking about in training trainability, is just how we break that down so that we have a horse that actually wants to work with us and have true willingness, instead of just submission where we've you know, given our horse no other option but to say yes. It doesn't create the horse that I want to work with, and I think that if you're here, you're in the same boat. Uncovering our love language with our horses. So this is a kind of a little funny tangent that came up in one of our Stronger Bond workshops, where we were talking about our emotional motivators and how each horse has a different way of connecting with us. It is unique, individualistic, and deeply personal, and it will depend on their previous experiences. This is one of the first skills that we look at developing with our horses in training trainability, where we're seeking connection, where they're actually looking for that contact with us. You know, if a horse doesn't want us around, doesn't like people, has distrust of people, then it doesn't look for that connection with us. And so we want to try and establish that connection and then build on that until we get to willingness, which is basically our horse just saying yes to the best of their ability. So some horses are, sorry.
I was going to say, and it's quite interesting how we know that food can be quite a good motivator for a lot of these horses, but when you get down to the, like, some horses, yes, food is the absolute 100% motivator to get them to your side, but for some others, you can slowly uncover that deeper seated emotional requirement. So if I think about my old boy Custard, his was very much the security, wasn't it, Katie? He didn't really start to open up until he could feel that he could trust. Whereas you look at Storm, who's a new little thoroughbred that I've been working with recently, and he is very muchly about that one-on-one contact. He wants his own person.
Yeah.
He loves, and don't get me wrong, both the boys absolutely love their treats, don't they, Katie? But when it comes down to uncovering exactly what they want and moving forward with their training in a way that will work with them, it's really getting to that deeper root of that emotional requirement for them, so that once we can start to solidify that, we can move forward in harmony in a relationship, and they feel positive and they love the work that they're doing. And they're the type of horses that are become the ones that nicker when you arrive, because they know that you're the right, you're that human, the crazy cookie lady, as I like to call myself. But yeah, it is equally true.
Yes, definitely. And I think that food is just like the opening of the conversation. I know that a lot of people don't like to work with food in their training because it can make horses pushy and stretch their boundaries and whatnot. But food is security in itself. It's a need for them to survive. And so we can really build on the safety and the security that food can create, even if it's just the fact that you are feeding them every day. They know that you are creating that food security for them. And once we open the gateway to deepen that connection, then food is just an added bonus, and we can think about it as a way of how we socialize with people ourselves. Is that my favorite thing to do with my horse is to go out and eat with him. That doesn't mean that he's eating what I'm eating, but we share a chamomile tea together, and he tries to drink that with me, so he started getting his own chamomile tea. But sharing a meal with people strengthens relationships. And even right back to the very beginning, the first way that we establish a bond with babies, the same with baby horses with foals, is by providing them with food, with milk. And so food does start that connection and that bond, and then we move past food to physical contact and other places where we can create security, like as we've talked about with curiosity and showing them that things aren't going to hurt them that they're scared of. And then other socialization aspects like grooming, and also our vocal cues. So our yeah, you're a good boy, you're a good girl, you're amazing, well done. Like if we are using those high-pitched reinforcing tones when our horse is cooperating with us, that in itself is a motivator to our horses, and really contrasts our ah. And so our ah doesn't have to escalate past that if they're looking for those vocal tones for a reward. So simplicity is key. Things that we are looking at to make it as easy as we can. Simple doesn't necessarily mean easy, but we're trying to make it easy. So our consent cues, simplifying your ask, creating a safe environment, spending quality time with our horse, adjusting our goalposts. So what I mean by adjusting goalposts is that, when you have those expectations of how a training session goes, but your horse may be giving you everything they've got, and you really want to reinforce that, so you can just finish the training session because they've showed you so much willingness, and that encourages the willingness and the engagement in the training session for the next training session. Building on their capabilities. This is a big one. We are always expecting them to be better than our last ride, and so we kind of need to be able to fluctuate within that, in that they can't give you 110% every single time you work with them. It's like us. We can't give 110% every day we go to work. We need to be able to work at a certain level that doesn't push us to our limits, and we need to be able to build on that over a period of time. And then making the win easy for them. So one of the things that I really teach about is that you know, that thing of repetition where you don't want your horse anticipating the ask. Well, your horse anticipating the ask means they know what you're doing and they know what you're going to ask. So it means that they're learning. So we want them to anticipate the ask enough to consolidate the cue so that the cue makes sense to what you're asking of them. And then once they do associate the cue with the ask, then you can change the placement of the ask, and now it's associated with the cue. So you can see, like, you know, a certain amount of anticipation is really important when it comes to our horse being in a learning environment. Whereas if we're just saying, oh, don't anticipate, and getting them in trouble for responding too quickly or too early, then we're shutting down their enthusiasm to participate in that learning environment. So we've talked a little bit about how we provide this at Equestrian Movement. We do have Training Trainability, which is our membership, and it's a course in itself. We create a horse that is seeking connection. We work on building that trust in us and creating the confidence, opening the pathway of communication. And it's really lovely seeing the people in it and the way they are coming along with their horses, you know, uncovering deeper understandings of why we have little behavioural issues, and finding a willingness in our horse that we just didn't even think was possible. You know, you kind of can see in your horse like that little twinkle of the dream horse that you want, and then you get the personality. So what we do with Training Trainability is we bring out the positives of their personality that you know, really are that little twinkle that you're seeing, and we allow that to flourish in an environment that promotes that positivity, rather than you know, seeing it as a naughty behavior that they need disciplining. And so then, you know, we kind of can quell their interest and their engagement in learning. You know, a really big thing that we talk about is developing eye contact and body language, because our horses are always seeking to communicate with us. And it's only when we start missing these cues and to some degree ignoring the fact that they're looking for it, that they stop asking. And so you can get a horse like, you know, baby horse, and they're woo in your face. They want to play, they want to learn, they want to be a part of it, they want to know everything about life. And then they kind of have one negative experience after another, and they start trying, and you know, that trying gets missed, and we get to our older horses that just aren't really interested in people, and they've only had bad experiences, or even if they haven't had bad experience, they just haven't had the experience with their human the way they wanted it to happen. And so what we're really trying to do there is we're trying to, you know, we're trying to be the people that our horse wants us to be, rather than, you know, teach them new tricks, teach them new cues, teach them new skills. We're trying to say, hey, I see you, and I see you for who you are. I want you to be the best version of yourself that you can be, and I want us to be the best version of ourselves that we can be together. And then we can really see that, you know, beautiful little spirit in them flourish.
Katie, Andrea was just saying that she's totally resonating.
Beautiful. Good to hear.
and Melanie commented, Melanie, who's one of our Training Trainability members, commented that teaching confidence and curiosity has been a game changer for her horse.
I don't think she's actually in Training Trainability. I think she's only been in our Facebook group.
Oh, wow. That's even better.
Group, which is our free group, is enough.
There you go.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create willingness instead of submission. So why you should choose Training Trainability? Obviously, you can just join our free Facebook group, and we do share quite a lot in there as well, which some of you are watching us from. But we do have a step-by-step foundational exercises that go into everything that we were talking about tonight. And we do get to know you and your horse, so we can tailor that to your horse and your pace. We absolutely understand. Like, I have a 10-month-old, 11 months now. Sarah's got a full-time job, so we totally get that. Some weeks the best you can offer your horse is an hour, and so we want you to feel like you can make the best experience out of that small amount of time that you get with your horse. We do have a Facebook community for that as well, so you get a supportive community, and I think that the people in there are getting just as much out of each other's wins as they are out of our support. Each month we have a lesson plan to help you move forward and expand on your skills, and every month we will be having a run through of that lesson plan, so you get the visual and the coaching session as well. Plus, for you guys being here live with us, we're also offering those of you that join Training Trainability a bonus of 2 personal video coaching sessions with me, which are normally valued at $170. So you will get them free if you join Training Trainability while it's open over the weekend of this summit. So that's for new members who join it before May 6th. All right, Q&A. Any questions?
Actually, it looks like Julia has posted one again from Facebook. So this is the thoroughbred, I believe, that got evacuated due to the fires. So this is my confusion, she says. I have a great blonde on the ground. He meets me at the gate, will follow me, let me do anything at all to him. He won't let everyone. Riding in familiar ground, his paddock or another paddock, if he has been allowed to explore loose at will first, he's totally calm. He's a tricky boy who can throw a good bronc when he's really lost it. Never throws me, never nasty, just pure fear.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, it is a big one to unpack, isn't it? There's a lot of potential issues that are there underlying that. If we look at all of our first do no harm, we need to rule out if the tack is good, if they've got any pain, if they've got anything underlying there. So he has problems when you leave the paddock that he feels safe in?
It sounds like that's she hasn't finished writing by the looks of it, or completed the writing. But yeah, it sounds like from the general gist from the previous comment as well, that the concerns are more when he leaves his his familiar areas.
So one of the things that we do teach a bit about this is building our horse's confidence with leaving their environment. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to teach our horse kind of how to, what can be called toggle. So how they move from the heightened state into a relaxed state and back up into a heightened state. This is pretty much our course because it's such a big subject and it requires so many moving pieces at once. But if I can try and break it down really quickly, your horse cannot be in a state of fight or flight and rest and digest at the same time. So when your horse is anxious and flighty and spooking and reactive, then they are in their fight or flight path, the hormones and everything. When your horse is in a state of rest and digest, we talk about activating the vagus nerve in us which we use humming and breathing and chewing and other things that stimulate rest and digest in us, and that moves us away from being anxious. So that's why as people we can have problems with our digestion if we're eating in an anxious and nervous state. So to bring it back to horses, if your horse is in a state of rest and digest, it can't also be in a state of fight or flight. So we need to teach them that process of getting themselves into rest and digest, which we do. And it might sound crazy, but we're working on finding the science behind it. But we do breathing exercises with them. So we teach them how to bring that anxiety and that tension and that stress down into a relaxed state. And then we want to work them back up into a working brain without flipping them over into the state of stress again. And then we're trying to bring them back down into that place of relaxation. So what we're doing is we're toggling, we're teaching them how to move from relax to work to relax to work. And the more they make those transitions and the better that they get at that, the better they get at controlling that emotional state when they experience something that is really jarring to them emotionally that they're not going to cope with. So we teach breathing, we reinforce relaxation cues, and then we challenge that environment. We also challenge that environment through targeting, so that we're focusing their brain on doing something so that they're not focused on spooking at things. And then we return them to their environment. So we're trying to create that positive experience in a stressful situation for them, so that the next time we do it, they're like, well, last time wasn't so bad, maybe I can do it again. And so each positive experience that we create for them builds on the last. Hopefully we don't get them in a situation where they hurt themselves, where it becomes a negative experience. And so then that builds on their confidence to keep trying new environments and things that are scary. And that's basically how, very like compact way, how we would deal with it. It's not like something that I can be like, hey, you do this one thing and your horse is fixed. Like, that's not how we work. It's a process of building your horse's skills in that environment.
Yeah. Julia says she really believes in the breathing and the relaxation, and it sounds great and really perfect for you, her and her boy. And Holly's also mentioned that she's been working on those things as well. At the moment, it's made a big change, or completely changed her gelding. So
I'm so glad that I'm not a weirdo. Honestly, I have my horses trained when I was competing that if I halt and start breathing, they would start breathing. And so I'd do my test, and I'd go down the center line, halt, and I'd take a deep breath. My horse would take a deep breath with me, and then we'd be like, right, focused on our dressage test. And I think that was really good for harnessing and focusing that stressful environment, and then allowing them to continue to show that in their work, which makes them, showier in their work while still being controllable. And I do it all the time. Like, sometimes it's for me, because I will be getting on a horse that I'm scared of, and I'll be like, okay, just calm your nerves. You don't want your horse feeding off of you. But a lot of the times, like, my nerves are there because the horse's nerves are there. And so you'll see me just hop on a horse that I'm a bit concerned of, and I'll just sit in the saddle for a couple of minutes focusing on breathing, and then we'll walk off, and again I'll just be focusing on breathing while I'm walking off, and until I can really start to feel that horse relax underneath me. And as a trainer and an instructor, I have to ride the horses that nobody else wants to ride, and I have to get big results really quickly for people to trust me to continue to work with them. So it's kind of my cheat way of getting through some of these trickier situations. but skipping some of our big pieces of the puzzle. Like, I can't go out and build a relationship and a bond with a horse in the first lesson that I have with it. So we've got to find other ways to broach the issues so that, you know, I still look like I'm a competent instructor. I just don't always say, hey, I'm doing breathing exercises with your horse.
I definitely think it's been resonating with some, and a couple of people have commented that they're interested in joining the training trainability course. So I will pop a link into the email that you get with the recording. That was the word I was looking for. But I'll also put it into the Facebook Live. So if you want to go and check out and read a little bit more about it, you can absolutely do that. We are accepting enrollments for the next week. And that's offer that Katie put out of 2 video coaching sessions.
We should actually also say that was for 20 people. The first 20 people. We didn't put that in the slides.
You beat me to it, Katie. I was just about to say, is capped at the first 20 and is only valid until for people that enroll before May the 6th. So if you are certainly keen in getting some help with her, the 2 sessions don't have to be done before May the 6th. They can be done at a time that is convenient, but it is a pretty awesome offer. And having spent years working with Katie, I can tell you now, with the horses that I've seen her working with, it makes a huge difference. So well worth doing it if you are interested in signing up. I guess now is the best time to do so. So have you got anything else that you needed to add, Katie?
No, I'm good.
As predicted, we're only 20 minutes over. But to be fair, I did talk for about the first 14. So, so thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. I know that some of you had to drop out early to deal with work or bedtimes or whatever you had to manage. That's absolutely fine. You will get the recording afterwards. Tomorrow we will kick off with Lisa Marie's presentation, which is all about thinking, I guess, business in this whole changing world that we're currently in, where what we do know is that at the moment, I guess some people are taking on some additional work in the horse industry to compensate for some loss of income, but thinking that it may not necessarily be of consequence if you don't really think of it from a business perspective. So Lisa Marie and I will be on chatting about that, and I know that I'm personally interested in that because I've got some some interest in adjustment and all of that rest as well. So I wanted to learn a bit more about her thoughts on that. So that will be tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, so that's Brisbane time. There will be a quick reminder in the Facebook group 10 minutes beforehand that the session will go live, and there will also be an email going out with the webinar link if you're preferring to join by the webinar, so make sure you sign up. If you do have any questions following this, please make sure that if you are watching the replay on Facebook that you hashtag replay so that we know that it is there for answering. If you are watching the replay on the recording, unfortunately there won't be a comment section, but you are more than welcome to either jump into our group and ask the question or send us an email through if you have any further questions. So thank you guys. I will see you guys all tomorrow morning, bright and early at 9 a.m. Well, that's bright and early from my perspective anyway. And have a great night. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
How are we going?
We're done.
Oh, did you stop it?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I'm